order. A couple of little things I wanted to say thank you for being flexible for this date change, trying to get a quorum here, and I'm not sure we still have one, but Ed, thanks for being on. You're our quorum breaker. And Veterans Day, happy 246th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. Any Marines in the room?
Marine mom.
Marine mom, good for you. Yeah, thank you. Even better.
I should get my triple.
Semper Fi. Okay, let's start the agenda. Okay, for the previous meetings minutes.
Do you have a copy of the minutes? I didn't ever. These are the old motions.
I got a pen here. Big, fancy one. Oh, now wait a minute. I may have.
Too much stuff sitting here.
Ed, are you still there? I'll show him as a participant. There you are back.
Okay, sorry about that.
Don't worry.
I'm not messing with it anymore.
Okay, we're looking at approving for minutes from the last meeting. Did you get that copy I sent you?
Yes, I did.
I hear a motion to approve the minutes. Second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion carried. Minutes are approved. Let's go on. Let's go on to the next agenda item. Current road project update. Get ready for winter.
Doing a lot of patching, blading. Guys putting rows in. Off the top of Big Creek first time. Pictures up there. Pretty much what we're working on there. Did some shouldering projects the last few weeks. That's like about half the farm market shoulder before it froze up on us last week. That's about it for the current projects. Closing things up for the summer and getting our trucks out hauling. And hauling unless we have an emergency.
Why do we use willows for flags?
Renewable resource. The white markers are $16 a piece, and my vehicle with no motor. I've had a road grade for years, and it's just really hard to. I haven't missed that many of them when you get buried in snow. Good move.
It's been that way for a long time.
Long time.
It's Valley County.
When people start seeing those go up, they can usually figure in about a month it's going to start snowing.
So you are ready for winter.
We're getting pretty close. We got a couple more projects to work on. The new grader showed up 2 weeks ago, so they're working on getting that in today. Ready to go. He was going in it. One new sander showed up. I know they're coming. Replace some old rest of that. We've been getting away from the hydraulic sanders and going to electric. Electric on the spinner with augers, everything electric. Get away from these old diesel operated wheels that the bag of salt to see. Getting those cables and our systems are so old, it's really hard to find. And have cables custom. Electric and switch mix.
Sand supply is up.
We're ready to go. I'm actually ended up with, I don't know, 150, 200 yards extra mixed with salt already. I doubled my salt mixture this year, so hopefully we can keep some of these roads bared up a little bit better.
Mainly the intersections.
Intersections, West Mountain's really bad. That's kind of where I just came from, was Tamarack, talking to some people, trying to get them to pitch in to help. How that road from Tamarack to Donley, during the day when we're not plowing it, keep that snow floor from building up.
Were they open to that conversation?
Said they had talked to the higher ups. So I wasn't talking to the higher ups.
So you talk to your higher ups, we'll talk to our higher ups.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Any other comments about the projects update? West Lake Fork looks good. You guys did a good job on that.
Yep.
Good job on shouldering.
Yeah, still got a couple driveways that need some work if we can get around to it this year, but
East Lake Fork, thank you very much.
Yeah, east.
oh, yeah. Yep, we got the 3 areas shouldered on that. It was only 1.5 inches, so we didn't have to shoulder the whole thing. We got Lance's driveway and then a couple other little gravel driveways off to the side. Shouldered up so the snow plows don't hook them coming out of their driveways this winter. That should hold it together till the road gets rebuilt here in a few years.
To get done with the recycling center?
Yep, I haven't looked at it yet, but they stayed late Monday night working on it.
Yeah, East Lake Fork looks really good. It's saved a lot of dodging. People driving
Saved a
down
lot
the
of
center
Fording
to-
too. Saved a lot of Fords and Chevys too. It's a joke.
And Chairman, at your request, I met with Mackenzie Kramer on the marketing campaign for the road department. So Jeff, has Mackenzie reached out for projects yet for this year that were completed?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so we just met, so she is gonna be reaching out. We're gonna be doing a full-on, just a conversation about what you guys were able to accomplish this year. So you might have that conversation with her, put that in the back of your mind, she should be calling for that.
Okay.
And we are gonna do not only social media, but also a county ad, basically with that information included.
Okay, review recommendations, and this was some of these motions that we've made through the life of the committee, the board. And thanks to Mary, man, we were able to get this listing through all the different meetings and minutes and pulling this all together in some people's notes. And what I've done was I've sent a note to Doug, see if we could get on the board's agenda. Said something about the 15th, we would do, be on the agenda for the 15th. So that'd be Monday.
Or something like that, if I remember right. I can't remember. It's on the draft agenda, but I can't remember exactly what time it was.
Can I tell you what time?
He didn't say what time, but he said, how's the 15th work? And I said, just fine.
Yeah, somebody was saying something Monday at our commissioners meeting about it or something. I can't remember what it was. I heard a time, but I didn't.
Gary and I were planning on attending that. Also,
It is a workshop at 1 o'clock.
1
So
o'clock.
it'll be a workshop.
so is that a public?
Look,
So would it behoove us to go through these one by one? These individual motions?
So my understanding of what we were planning to do was the actual action item motions where we were recommending action to the commissioners as the items that we're trying to down it. And so it's looking through this list and we go through them one by one. see on here, we're actually creating motions and recommendations to the commissioner.
Let's go ahead and go through the ones.
And I can amend this and, take those off too.
So I think from April 7th meeting, motion number 1 is an action item. It's going to be the commissioners. Motion 2 is strictly a table of discussion, so that would not go to the commissioners.
Kirby, can I ask what you're looking at?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask what you're looking at?
I'm looking at this list of motions.
I don't know that I have that one. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
And I don't know if we need to memorialize our meeting times and the to the commissioners. That was just strictly board action. It wasn't a recommendation to commissioners. Memorialize tabling item. Items 2 and 3 at the bottom. I think an item motion that needs to be presented to commissioners. And then on the second page, get motions on that page, June 2nd, July 7th.
Paul, do you know if Ed got this document?
I'm sorry?
Did Ed get this document? Is this something I need to run in and send to him really quick?
Ed, did you get that document that I sent with all the previous motions?
Yes, I think I'm not really sure that I got one that was just lined out, Paul, but, I've been kind of following most of the dialogue between
Send it right now.
particularly you, Kirby, and,
Send it directly. So Mary's,
yeah, anyway,
Mary's gonna pop it over to you right now.
okay, that'll be fine. And one of the things, guys, while I've got you there, I just can't hear this conversation. I may try, maybe I could go try the other side, the other link, but it's just not working. I hear Paul quite well. I hear Sherry really well. Everybody else is just mumble. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sure there's anything can be done about that.
Ed, how's this?
That sounds good if you could just make that work.
Okay, I'll look up and yell.
Okay, I'm sorry to put you guys in an awkward position,
Oh,
but it
that's all
seems
right.
like this audio thing
I tend to
could
look.
work. But anyway, go ahead with the things, and then we'll see how this works. And thanks for mailing me that document. I'll make sure that I get that right now. There it is. And so I'll review that as we go through it. Go ahead and bye.
Okay, thank you. And we'll look up at the ceiling where the speaker is whenever we want to talk.
So Ed,
That will make a lot of difference.
as you look at that document, what we were discussing was the April 7th meeting, the very first one on page 1. Item number 1 was an action item that we were going to recommend to the commissioners. And then down from May 19th, items 2 and 3.
Okay, I see on, okay, 1, I made that motion. That was to purchase needed software.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, and then on May 19th,
Items 2 and 3.
communication plan. I see that, yes.
Okay, so items 2 and 3 were actually recommendations to the commissioners. And then.
Yes.
And then we took those issues up again on June 2nd and July 7th. So on page 2, those 2 motions were action items. Those are all of the ones I can remember us going through that we're going to add to our recommendations to the commissioners to date. Unless you think of something.
Okay, yeah.
Sing.
No, I see the one about recommending the 2.5 carryover and the communication plan. Yeah, I can remember. Okay. Okay, well, I guess I'm up to date with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other further discussion on what we're going to carry forward to the commissioners on the 15th?
Okay. One question really quick. We did recommend, it seemed to me like we made a motion to recommend that the county commissioners do a couple other things. And one of them was to recommend that we do not consider districts. Was that one of the ones that we officially motioned and acted on?
We talked about it.
We talked about it. We decided it was off the table internally, that we wouldn't carry any further discussion on it. We figured it was a done discussion. That's what makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah, I had I actually revisited in my mind, and it's pretty sure that we did have a motion on that one and a discussion and a vote, that's what I recall anyway. And that was brought up by Gary, and who I guess probably decided that, at least we decided at that time we didn't want to pursue road districts at all. And I thought we made a motion to carry that forward to county commissioners. And so the only concern I had with that one, if we were to take that to county commissioners and they may cast it in concrete, so to speak, it'd take another tool off the table going into the future. So if we did not do that, then I'm great with that one. But if we did, I wanted to at least have some more discussion about it. All right, thank you.
There was also a recommendation to the board to take foregone, and I don't see
That's
that in
missing
here either.
That's right, that's the
Yeah,
one
there
that's
was something
missing.
relating to foregone.
And that was a formal motion that we don't have. So how do we do that if we don't have the verbiage of that motion? And can we, Sherry, is it acceptable to come to the commissioners with this list and just a general addition to the list that states that the board had recommended the commissioners take foregone?
Yes.
That's acceptable.
Yeah, because we can go back to the published minutes if anybody has a question about that and actually pull the actual verbiage.
Okay. 'Cause I
All
know-
you're doing right now is doing a synopsis anyway,
Okay,
so it doesn't have to be actual verbiage.
I have a note here. I don't have a date on it, but I have a note that I took. Motion to recommend commissioners take foregone taxes to supplement road department budget. They don't have a date on that, so I got it from somewhere. Probably my
I had that
notes.
knowledge when we approved the budget, so it would have had to have been July's meeting or
I was-
August meeting. And actually, one of those
It was-
months didn't meet.
We're looking up the date right now, Ed.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm not sure that.
Yeah, I was trying to go back.
I'm not sure how important the date was. I think that if we just strictly add to our list of action items that the board had made a recommendation, moved and voted to pass a recommendation of the commissioners to take foregone. They've already acted on it in the current budget. So I'm glad that came up because we definitely want that on the record that we
Support that.
had supported that and recommended it. And I do remember that was a formal motion.
Yeah. Anyway, I do remember that we did vote on that, guys. I was trying to find other stuff from where I was at with my meeting notes and various stuff, but I'm not doing very good right now. So I'll just keep looking. And But the two, I do think we voted on the one to recommend no road districts, and I think we also voted on the 2.5 carryover and to use the foregone money. Pretty sure we did.
That was on July 7th as we did that one.
And the other thing that I do believe that there was a formal motion on was that marketing plan.
Is what?
that we
Yes,
used.
that's true. We did.
Yeah, it was the
County's
communications
public relation-
plan.
Yeah, the communications plan. I think that was a
That on
formal
there.
motion.
That's on there, I
Yeah, it's
think.
on there.
June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're covered as long as we address the foregone and then whatever we decide to move forward today.
Yeah, the other one I had here on my notes containing lease purchase equipment, discussed the capital municipal leasing of equipment, also recommendations for longer-term holds of major equipment with replacement.
That's item 3.
Item
your
3 is
bottom one.
covered on item.
Yep, that was Gary's motion and we passed it.
I think we're good.
Oh, I don't have it as an official motion, but the 2022 budget was discussed. The Road Advisory Board will make a take foregone proportion to the road department to stabilize their budget.
We can use that language.
Are you gonna,
Yeah, I'll clean
will you,
that.
this document? Yeah, if you can cut and paste that comments into this document that we're gonna carry to the commissioners, that would be ideal. And then I think we'll have some more to add today, maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work on that, Mary.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
She's been,
I would have never been able to get it figured out.
I was trying to figure out a way to cut and paste all the old minutes. This thing is giving me trouble. Okay, any further discussion on recommendations that we will carry forward on next Monday, I believe? Hearing none.
We leave that open to additions for, once we discuss those priorities for.
We'll leave the list of recommendations open for any future motions we may have today. Okay, let's move on to, we'll pass up the break. We're running a little early here. Priorities for the coming year. Now, what we have is listed Gary and Kirby put together. I added a couple items to it. Did I send that to you already, Ed?
Yes, you did.
You got it. When I got Kirby's list, I looked at it and I'm going, wow, a lot of thinking to pull all this one together. Thinking and driving on county roads, let's put it that way. And I had a little small list on a little notepad that took Gary's list and I added it to Gary's list. And then went down through Kirby's list to make sure that Gary's list had covered most of the things that Kirby had done. And so I think it's pretty good. And Kirby, you got any comments on that?
First of all, the list I put together was just intended to be for other people's review and thoughts and additions. You know, I included some things on my list that are already, according to Gary's comments, part of the job description within the director's job description already. And so I don't know that adopting my list, when Gary and I, basically our lists were almost hand in hand on what we expected without getting into the actual job description issues, which should already be manageable by the commissioner. So, I have a fairly high comfort level in moving Gary's analysis forward with as far as a recommendation from the board, with the caveat that recognize that that management has job descriptions that are hand in hand with this list that need to be monitored and accountability measures put in place.
A couple of the items that I'd wanted to add to it is we wanted to, like to see us capture the cost for backcountry maintenance and then look for potential contracting. Take the load off Jeff.
I think, in thinking about this, I think we've got kind of several things going on here from our last meeting. One was to just create a priorities list.
Right.
That's a measurable list of what's going to be done and when. And I think that's what Gary really captured in his document. And then from there, I think if we can kind of dial down on that list and create that priorities list as a recommendation to the commissioners, so they've got a measurable set of priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, as I noted in my comments, I think we do need, we do need to sit down and start doing an analysis of that backcountry work. I think that would be a secondary motion. And part of the problem we have with that, which we've discussed repeatedly, is that we don't have good measurement of costs internally for what it's costing us to go back there. And once we have a good idea that you're right, getting a bid and getting a point of comparison is something that really should be.
The other one I wanted to add for maybe a summer or spring, and I'm going to look at Jeff, give me an idea when, is we have a lot of blind intersections that are just loaded with vegetation. The sight line is quite impaired. Give you a list of the ones that I've almost hit people on.
That's what I tried to get my crew to give me. It calls in, I got information from the public. You don't see a lot of these. Why, when all the vegetation's fully out, I'm not out driving around all the time. I would appreciate a list.
Yeah,
If
okay.
any of you guys come across a blind intersection, give me a call, email or something. That's as bad as missing a stop sign. I need to know as soon as possible when somebody finds it. I might not find it walking to me.
Right.
Somebody driving up there in a semi, sticking the bumper of their ten-wheeler 3 feet out in the road to see if somebody's coming.
Or they have a hard time seeing around their cell phone.
Yeah.
Legal.
What kind of sparked my comment about that was that Hudson Lane, Norwood,
That's on my
where we had the
list.
fatal
Yeah.
a couple months ago.
Do with that fatal accident, just so you know, because
I just
coming
don't-
from the other side.
I just don't like that corner. Yeah.
Yes, and it's bad in the wintertime because people take Johnson as a shortcut into town, especially the schoolers. You can get there faster by doing 60 miles an hour down Johnson Lane, 60 miles an hour down Norwood. You can get to school faster than going through town.
And moving through Mission.
Yeah. Brother lives out there, I know all about it. Yeah, if you know of any, shoot me an email or something, and that's usually pretty critical on my list.
So do we want to go down through these individually as a group?
Sure.
Valley, any roads safe and passable during winter conditions? Do the best we can with that.
Now that kind of goes back on, we keep the main, we'll go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and want to hit the main arteries and bus routes one more time. There's a 24-hour maintenance on these roads. So we got to take that consideration on number one.
I think number 2 is something that you tell your crew, or you should. Create a system of accountability for failure to maintain, abuse of equipment, and low productivity. The new software program could help you with hours, idle hours, and those items.
We didn't talk about that software deal coming up here.
Good. Let's talk about it right now. That's part of accountability.
So we demoed 3 of them, or not demoed, we sat through a class for 3 different companies. New person we've hired in the office, Sarah, is gonna be running this, done this before. She came in yesterday she wasn't here for our first demo. It's called Fix, Fixx. Can't remember what that stands for, but Pete came back up yesterday and went through another quick rundown on that one. That's one we're going with. Jeremy, yes, that's the one we're gonna do. Well, he should be hopefully getting things rolling here pretty quick on that.
You hit the high spots of what that system does.
So basically, it's gonna have, I'm just gonna say the road department, but there's other departments here that are gonna use that also. We're gonna have every piece of equipment in there, including pickups, trucks, road graders, loaders, everything. It'll have a breakdown on there, so if they go to do a service on such and such road grader, they can type that number in, everything comes up with what they need.
Good.
With the costs, and when the mechanics get done doing it, they log into their little laptop or tablet, whatever it is that they're gonna have, haven't decided yet. It goes straight into that Fix program, and then Sarah can download that and come up with a cost, which is what we're missing right now.
Does it, one of the conversations we had early on is that we buy, we call NAPA or whoever we're buying parts from, and like oil filters and such.
Yep, that'll help keep our
So-
inventory.
So
'Cause
we've
right
got an
now we're
inventory
relying on
aspect
the
of it.
NAPA guy comes down once a week, takes inventory of what we got, and we mark down, we do filters, we hash marks next to it so he knows how many we used.
Okay.
The following week, he'll bring us the replacement for those and how we're doing it. We're paying the bills for those, but when it comes time to do the maintenance on the machine.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it provides us the ability to identify what each piece of equipment costs a service, any major service items, so we can actually print a report on grader X and find out when it's outrunning its useful life and financial viability. It gives us an ability to track inventory so that if we get a public records request for what we're buying,
yes.
we can produce one. Is that also part of this GPS tracking? Is that part of that, or is that separate?
That's separate.
Okay, all right.
We're getting rolling on that also.
Okay, and then, so that's gonna be implemented for the entire fleet? Correct.
For right now, it's all of our plow equipment, plus about 7 of the motor pool vehicles.
Okay.
Or road department pickups.
Is it gonna, will it be implemented for the entire fleet, the sheriff's trucks?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the timing, expected timing on eventually on that?
Hired a full-time person, and she will be specifically tasked with this and implementing it throughout the county.
Okay,
You
So-
did?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Her title, inventory.
Oh, that's Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah.
Oh, I didn't know she was taking care of the tracking stuff. Vehicle trackers.
Oh, no.
I'm talking about the fleet management, the
Oh,
inventory.
fleet management, that's
I thought-
Sarah's.
I was on the same vehicle
Yeah.
tracking as you were.
No, I
That's
was
Sarah's main
concerned
job.
about, because part of our discussion has been your department, but more globally, how do we figure out these costs and things so we can identify some sort of a capital improvement plan for equipment and when we need to replace it and how we need to go about that. So that was one of my concerns early on, is to have an ability to actually figure out what each one of these things is costing us, put metrics to it, and figure out when we really need to be replacing it and then getting us on some sort of a schedule for those municipal leases or whatever funding mechanisms that the commissioners decide down the road. So that's separate from the GPS tracking system that will hook up. And that's just going to be your equipment for the time being,
For
right?
the time being, it's gonna
Okay.
be the snow removal equipment, plus 2 new vehicles at the road department and the 3 that we already have them on throughout the
Okay.
motor pool.
Thanks. Thank you.
And
The
with,
buildings and grounds, we use that too, for our large equipment, like our boiler replacements.
boilers
A lot
and
of our
generators
large,
and,
yeah, purchases, we use that same software. I think the coolest thing with it is it creates barcodes. So you can literally walk up with a scanning gun,
yeah.
scan the barcode, over to, or scan that barcode. And it's the barcode I thought was pretty.
Yeah.
Good.
You can also download Grader X. Say there's a service bulletin, we can scan that in, attach it to that machine, so when we type in Grader X, it shows up in its attachment, so it's pretty much, and they've downgraded a little bit to specifically us. The second one we demoed was big. I mean, it was for like the city of Seattle. They could GPS where each tree was, where each drain was, where we've already got a lot of the culverts and roads and stuff through our ERC stuff that Kara does.
And so staff is on board, understands this is coming, and they're
Yes, Sarah is, when are we gonna get it? When are we gonna get it? Ready.
I'm more concerned that the guys that are doing the work, and Sarah's jobs but I'm more concerned about just making sure that the guys that are doing the work, the mechanics and everybody.
That's gonna be the hardest trick, is to make sure they,
They do something, they record it.
yes,
They
yeah.
input the data, right?
Don't just go do a quick oil change on this vehicle and
Ignore
write a
it.
work order
I'll
up
catch
on
it
like
later,
we've done
yeah.
for the last 50 years.
So Pete
Yes.
did all of those demonstrations though, and he was really on board. He's your lead mechanic.
He's my
Yeah.
senior mechanic on the motor pool set. Stretch is the heavy mechanic. He's my shop foreman. But he knows it's coming. Sarah's already talked to all the mechanics and kind of gave him the rundown of what needs to happen. He was just the perfect pick because she's done 2 or 3 companies from ground zero to implementing to training to getting everybody on board for it.
So moving to the GPS now. So will you be able to be in your vehicle or your office and be able to see where everybody's moving?
In my office.
Will the public be able to see that?
Yes.
We decided to go live with that.
Yeah,
There
it's
was
good.
an opportunity to hold it for, minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. We chose to go live.
Like a 10-second delay or something like that. And it's through Verizon, so if you lose service, cell service, which
It's
happens
gonna blip.
2 or 3 places
It's
in
gonna
here.
leave
you're
it here
gonna
and
have a
show
big
up here
jump.
and what happened in the middle, yeah.
Yep. Backcountry maintenance won't show up because it's no service back there. And all of a sudden the grader shows up in Yellow Pine and goes ding. So somehow it went from Cascade to Yellow Pine, but it took 3 months.
Yeah. I think that will be really a good public relations to get that out.
Yeah.
So you can cut back on a few of those phone calls.
Well, I think it's gonna add to it also because we're gonna get a lot of people going, well, I was usually here by 4 o'clock and now it's showing that he's over here. What's taking so long? And I've got to get on the radio and call that plow guy and ask what's the holdup. It kind of a,
It's got goods and bads to
Oh,
it, but
yeah.
I think the public, the more the public knows, I think.
well, that's a lot of it is. I mean, most people don't get up and out till 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Look out the window and there's 8 inches of snow on the road. Call and go, when are you gonna plow the road? I'm sorry, we already did it at 3 o'clock this morning.
Check out your berm.
Check out your mailbox.
Yeah,
See how
exactly.
your mailbox is doing you.
Good luck.
Yeah, it'll be mostly good.
Good. So we talked to Mackenzie about maybe a little brief on that. Okay, good.
That was the point I was making, keeping in mind that probably what percentage of people read the Star News, or, you know, they're probably not a lot. But ultimately, the thought process with this presentation of the commissioners on Monday, would like to see us have our PR person contact Star News and have them in attendance,
Oh,
and us have a press release with these bullet point recommendations for them to go in the paper, because ultimately, you know, one of the things we've talked about from the get-go is transparency, and having this GPS system as part of that's
right.
whatever it is, press release. You know, all we can do is what we can manage, and what we can manage is getting the information in a spot where interested, concerned people can go find it. And, you know, it's to answering to people where your snowplow is at 4 o'clock in the morning. Snowplow, you know, and it snowed last night.
It's plowing snow currently.
You know, that,
Sometimes they break.
you know, I'll use it because I'll be able to watch and tell right before they plow the driveway shut, so I can not plow in advance of
So
that.
there
I
you
can
can
wait
leave,
till they're
leave
gone.
before the plow drives.
It'll help me with my timing, and
Right.
maybe that's what you tell people. Well, if you watch that, then you can go take care of your business
True.
after they're gone.
True.
And
You know.
we should, part of the marketing thing, I gotta, before I forget, is put on your, the voicemail. You know, thanks for calling, we're on another line. If your snowplow is, go to yada yada, and you can look at it in real time.
Well, if we ever get switched over to the new phones, we can do that. We're still
Second
on,
time this week I've heard.
we're still on the old school phones down there. New ones are plumbed in, but
The ones with the dial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dial on.
Those are the new ones I
Yeah.
got.
yeah, it's not that old, Paul.
I think that's gonna be a good move, this GPS.
Thanks for the update, Jeff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, we'll move to the spring, open up backcountry roads as soon as the snowpack permits. We have the deal going with Idaho County to big chunk of Idaho County.
I know there's been talked about, I'm not sure out on that with,
There's a lot of work as far as absorbing that extra, or.
No,
as
just
far as
maintaining
the
that
road
chunk
work?
of Idaho County for him to get to the other side of Valley County.
I mean, we've always, once we get the summit open, we leave the blade at Bergdorf Junction. Then just kind of buzz straight on through, but if there's bad washouts or something, we'll cuff them in and do a quick little down and dirty job on it, just so people, we know there's people right on our bumper as soon as we get that.
Repair damaged asphalt roads prioritized by traffic flow, not limited to potholes, shoulder break off, depressions, and ridges. Effects of winter, freeze and thaw.
We'll definitely concentrate on that a little harder next spring.
I think that's where we get most of our complaints.
All because of those two big holes on Farm to Market.
Two big holes in Farm Market and then those ones in Norwood. There's a couple of small car swallowers.
I've had some guys out patching, so hopefully
I saw them yesterday.
it's done here pretty quick.
Lake County maintain roads. First of 3 times.
Some roads just get it once, it depends on the traffic.
That's one of the thoughts I had, Jeff, that and again, I think Gary's list is adoptable. The one comment or thought process I had is that I think we need to grade those backcountry roads by grading. I mean, 1, 2, 3. How often does, you know,
Everything gets bladed just once.
but how often
Except
do
for
we?
Johnson Creek.
Yeah, how often do we need to go back to, you know, Big Creek and grade those
That's just it.
back roads and-
I go back and look. Forest Service also relays information to, is, well, if I don't make it back there like I didn't make it up Oak Creek this year, and I say, road looks great. The reason for you to come back and do it this year.
We grade it once, springtime grade, once the snow's off, and then Johnson Creek maintained as needed.
Yeah, and it,
So maybe that's the 3-time-a-year one, and maybe that's the one we need to, that's the one we need to really be talking
That's the
about
one
bidding
needs to be out there.
contracts.
I mean, that one there, we almost need to leave a water truck and a road grader and a rock rake sitting in a landmark. Because after one busy weekend or a 3 or 4 day weekend, crashed.
So, and that speaks to Paul's comment and my thought that we need to prioritize bidding some of that.
I agree.
And, you know, if the cost is close, because, you know, when you start calculating the travel time to pay an employee of the county to come back,
It's taking you away
taking
from
the equipment and all the other
work.
pieces and parts. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
we could actually maybe save an entire employee's annual salary that would offset maybe the small additional cost of having somebody else do that maintenance, ultimately break even and have less wear and tear on the equipment.
So just keep in mind, my number of employees is based on snow removal.
Yeah, no, I got
So
that.
if I get
understand.
rid of somebody in the summertime,
Yeah.
I won't have somebody in the
No,
wintertime.
you would.
I get that, and
We'd put them on the patching crew.
Yeah. I understand that, but
Asphalt.
the issue that I'm getting around to is that the county's not getting smaller. Every time we talk, there's a discussion of how many more traffic miles or count are being put out there by all the added tourism and or growth, just localized growth. And so that wintertime staffing is likely in the next couple of years going to be necessary on the valley floor anyway. And it is in the wintertime. I'm not advocating getting rid of somebody. I'm advocating making sure that we're using our staffing and our equipment efficiently. And if there's a way to affordably hire that backcountry work done by somebody that's already back there all the time with the equipment, they're paying they're paying their employees to be there. They're paying all of the added cost of those employees, the equipment. Let's hire them to do the work as long as they're doing it well.
I'm gonna talk to mainly OK Gravel Works back there. They've usually got a blade and a water truck in Yellow Pine because they're the ones that do the work for Perpetua up East Fork. And
So,
I just wanted to add a small comment, more backcountry issue is that we need a list of miles of road that need to be rebuilt before we can maintain them correctly. And I
pretty
think,
minimal.
yeah, some of those, like pieces of Lick Creek, chunks of pieces of that,
Whole thing.
pretty much the whole thing. There's a couple of spots where it's not
I
bad,
know.
but and there's a lot of traffic on that road. And,
Yeah.
I was saying earlier is that there's a few spots there where people are getting pretty darn close to the edge trying to miss a huge
Rock
rock
is sticking out of the ground
yeah.
that far.
So they're right on the edge of the slough. So, could be okay, stage 4 and initiate.
Yeah, Paul,
Yes, sir.
Paul, can I interrupt just a second, please?
Go ahead, Ed.
To kind of to follow up just a little bit on this discussion with backcountry roads and accountability, and I think appreciate the comments and recognition, like Kirby just tried to, I think, iterate, is that things are changing back there. We talked about this backcountry roads at one of our meetings pretty extensively. We didn't make any motions regarding backcountry roads, but we didn't, in my opinion, we came up with a lot of, I think, some good ideas, but to just follow up on that, I suggested at that time that maybe backcountry roads needs to have some sort of a, because of accounting, accountability to all of it, the fact that we actually get money per mile money for those roads. I mean, when we go to the state with their mileage request, they give us X number of dollars per mile, and we've been using it, in my opinion, as a cash cow. And I think that's why, in a lot of ways, we're into this. But to bring it to the other point of that Kirby just talked about is that the use, it's just times they are changing. It's just the way it is. I talked to a friend of mine this morning that came over Lick Creek. I didn't even bring it up, but they was talking. We stand in our conversations talking, and they were saying, "God, this road is just horrible." I mean, it really is falling apart. You know, looking forward into the future, we got to decide how we're going to deal with that. And we talked with Merle Celine, showed up at our meeting, and we talked a little bit about that. And he made a suggestion that I think was quite a good one. And I think we've talked around that already quite a bit. But we actually come up with a plan. And you can't, one of the things, a plan of just doing it when it needs doing or whatever is not really a plan, probably. Because in order to have a plan, we got to figure out, okay, if we're going to grade esports 3 times during the year and clean the bare pits and cut the brush back and various things like that, you got to have some sort of a system that you can base future funding on. And you can't, it just can't come in. I guess if it comes along, we don't need it some year, that's fine. Bring the money back out here and use it. But in my opinion, we got to do a little bit better plan on that one. And that's why I suggested maybe we consider those roads somewhat in maybe a different branch or something like that, so that we can dedicate people and machinery to that job as needed or whatever. And that doesn't mean you can't use them other places, but come up with something where you have something that going forward, you can tell people this is what we plan to do in the backcountry. And either that or give them back to the Forest Service, or maybe a little bit of both. But just what we're doing here is becoming a kind of a quasi roads district board, it seems to me like, but when we come back to that backcountry thing, and there's others like was mentioned earlier there with the Tamarack, the build up over there, and you know, it's some things there that just seems to me like that we got to come up with some kind of a little bit different, something a little more concrete when we go to the county commissioners going forward with some of these issues. And the backcountry roads, when we're just talking about, I just think that it's time for us to do, or the road department or somebody, just to sit down and do a comprehensive plan, and maybe in concert with the people that actually live in the backcountry, and going forward, present that as a plan. So anyway, that's just some thoughts on that one, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ed. What I need to do is get our total backcountry miles, multiply that by how much we get paid through the fuel tax, and concentrate that money to the backcountry, not per se per area. Definitely Johnson Creek, Yellow Pine area gets used more. We might end up blading down to Deadwood Reservoir times. Once again, I think with us getting state money for, I don't know what the number is up to now, $2,400 a mile, to maintain our roads. We figure out what mileage is back there, multiply it by that number, and like Ed said, don't use it as a cash cow. We'll hire a contractor and put them back there with that money we're getting paid to maintain those roads.
And where does that money come?
Which,
The state fuel tax,
here's
blue line.
here's the problem with that general idea, from my perspective, Jeff, is that we're getting paid gas tax per mile of road. But how do you delineate right now, today, what it costs us to do that if we don't know our equipment costs?
Right.
Which is why I respect Ed's position. However, right now, I don't think we have adequate information available to even create a plan, because part of that plan is how do you pay for it?
Right.
So right now, I think that the steps that we're kind of wading through here today with it, which is this seasonal priority list that we would recommend, is here's kind of a basic level of service that we need to focus on now. and it's measurable. There's an accountability associated with it. And part of that over the next year is being able to utilize a system that's being put in place in your department to be able to do cost benefit analysis. I'm reluctant to wait to have you, how do I do this? If I were in your job today, one of my priorities would be to start looking at bidding that backcountry stuff with OK Gravel or whoever. Despite the fact that we don't have enough underpinnings right now to really do a good cost benefit analysis, but when you just look at the surface of all of this, and I've spent quite a lot of time sort of trying to take missing information and use common sense to fill the gaps. The number we talked about before the Yellow Pine Festival that they said they would do that for back in there seems, in my mind, really close to probably what it costs us to send our equipment, our guys back there. When you figure you add on some level of liability for your time on the road and some of the other things, per diem, campers parked back there for guys to stay in. What's the insurance cost on that? All these other little layers of things, maintaining that stuff. To me, and I'm a numbers guy, but sometimes you go with your gut, and my gut tells me that the system that you're implementing right now, by the time we get done analyzing that system through a full year, when it applies to equipment and manpower usage on the backcountry roads, I bet you we're sixes versus bidding it and having it done by a contractor. And I think right now getting this plan in place and these measurable ideas that we want to present is important. Having that option of contracting that out starting next spring, a reasonable number for you, for the commissioners to review, is important. Maybe by then we'll start having a fairly decent idea of what graders are really costing us to run with snow plowing and everything else, to be able to just do a basic comparison. But I don't think we're quite at the point now where we can say we're going to dedicate $2,400 a mile to backcountry roads when we have no additional funding revenue stream to manage the stuff on this list on the valley floor, and what percentage of our people live in those backcountry areas. And I'm not diminishing their value, but I'm saying that they choose to live there, and part of choosing to live in Valley County as opposed to LA is similar to living in McCall versus Yellow Pine, right? Your expectations should be measured accordingly, and our ability to service those are measured accordingly. So,
The tourism.
yeah. So I think whatever it's worth, I to some degree, I guess, agree and understand where Ed's going with, but I don't think that we're in a position to just say our slush fund that we use here that buys our equipment.
Well, I mean, is what I'm saying, we wouldn't take that full $2,400 a mile and spend it back. But we would dedicate, I'm just gonna say $600 a day, whatever it was that, what I came up with, what Wade came up with, kind of a ballpark figure. Take that, figure out how much and just, we can put that towards a contract.
Okay.
Not the full $2,400,
Okay.
but it wouldn't totally diminish our
Yeah.
cash flow out here, but it would dedicate a certain amount of money to those backcountry roads, whether it be a contractor or whatever.
And you probably have a gut feeling of what it costs us to go back there.
Yeah.
Even though we can't put it to paper.
Right.
And
Logical bit might be.
yeah.
My figures were when this whole thing started, I was working with Gary and I came up with, it's costing us about $500 a mile.
So even if you did that twice a year, that would be a 100% improvement over what happened this year. So even, even if you don't say 3 times a year to start with, that we will try to be there twice a year.
Yeah,
Different improvement in service.
Deadwood's probably getting pretty darn close to the amount of traffic Yellow Pine gets from the boaters and the campers and recreation people. And that's another road that just, after one busy weekend, 4th of July, it trashed. And if we're not back there, that's a long ways for us to get everything back there again to blade it again.
Do you think that there will be contractors available to do this kind of work?
I don't know. Just gotta start
All we can do
checking.
is do, but yeah, I agree. We need to get on their radar right now.
Yeah, get out ahead of it. Okay, I'm gonna go to number 4 here, stage 4, and initiate any pre-budgeted and approved large.
Yep.
projects.
Can I, excuse me, Paul, just a second.
Go ahead, Ed.
I, start with, before we leave that subject, I appreciate where Kirby's at, and I'm hearing what, I'm hearing, oh golly, I lose it sometimes when I try to come up with a name when I don't know when I'm trying to talk here. But one of the things is what I do appreciate is that we are talking about this in probably a little bit more positive vein. Now, if you do contracts, and here's where I kind of take a little bit of umbrage with Kirby on that. You say we don't have the information. We got we do have a lot of information. I think it's pretty easy to figure out. And even if we use that contractor that's back there out of Cascade to do that, A1 or whatever it is. Anyway, if we use that as kind of a baseline, and all you got to do then, you get the miles of road, you got to figure out each individual road, how much does it get? And you can come up with that. It's not like it's something that's going to be cast in concrete. It's something to be changed. But what I would like to see is that emphasis, in which I think I'm hearing, is say, no, guys, let's do those roads. We took them on. We agreed to do them. Let's do them. And recognize that, by golly, it's just going to take more. It's going to cost you. I know early on we're talking, just a fraction of the amount of money we get to do those, but I think there's just a lot of hidden cost. I think that's why we're talking about contracting, even as Kirby mentioned, if we break even on that. But thing is, we got to start someplace. It can't be year after next. It's got, we have to, I think we need to start by saying, what, our recommendation to the county commissioners is to take a little bit more proactive approach to our backcountry roads. If we feel like they're important, that we want to hang on to them, that we want to do them, then, we're getting the money to do that. As I think you're talking about 2,400 now. And I think Jeff will tell you that that's probably pretty adequate. But, when that particular section of the country needs some carryover because we're going to have natural disasters. And, so anyway, I just wanted to follow up on that just to make sure that we hopefully that we willing to go to the commissioners with the recommendation.
Can you hear me or?
Yeah.
Hi.
Lorraine?
This is Loren checking in. We've only done it once this year. Already the potholes are getting bigger. If we don't do it before the winter sets in, those potholes freeze and widen. That's why you need to do it in the fall, very last thing. And then in the spring, you need to do it again and to help maintain things, because otherwise it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So that's kind of my take on it. We did the mag chloride already, but there's stretches on the East Fork that's just getting awful again. So that's, the idea was that's going to hold the road together and maintain and stuff, but there's patches that are just horrible. There's some patches that are good, of course, but so if you don't keep the maintenance up, you're looking at a disaster, really, with all the traffic that's on it.
So if we go back to this seasonal priority list that was put together by Gary, it's pretty evident that the intent in this list of priorities is maintenance of the backcountry roads. If you look at the springtime, open up backcountry roads. Summer, grade the county maintain gravel roads again. Second and 3 times under the guidelines mentioned above. So this list of priorities is effectively, if we present this as a recommendation to the commissioners, this is including a more consistent plan for measurable success of taking care of those backcountry roads and maintaining them. That was part of our discussion several months ago. I think Gary took it to heart. I know I did. We recognize there's funding coming from those roads and that we need to do a better job of maintaining them. And I think that's the reason for Gary addressing it in his memo, spring, summer, fall, as well as me.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, anyway, I appreciate where you're going. I thank you for the discussion on that one. And I just think that when we go to the county commissioners on that one, that needs to be kind of like a start item because it is a major issue. And it needs to, with understanding that we may spend a lot more of that money that we're receiving for those roads to actually do those roads. So that throws us into the quandary of being, assisting us here in the other country. And once we recognize at some point that we identify this, and that's why I say a plan is earlier is better than a plan later. But once we identify that we do have to spend more of that money and we're going to have less money over on this side, then we look at, okay, where do you go? Do you go with the levy? Do we look for some road district opportunities? What we do in the future, but what we need to be doing is looking at something that puts something together that gives us a long-term management scheme and not so much getting down in the weeds of, which road to do, but, and which project to take on. But the overall picture here, I think Jeff and his group are plenty capable of doing that. If it means taking on more people or whatever, you just have to analyze it and say, this is what we need. And then eventually we'll be able to go to the public and say, this is what we need.
I make
At
a
least I
recommendation.
think.
I would recommend that you guys put in this verbiage somewhere that you would recommend that the county commissioners allow Mary Rosen, the grant writer, to assist in finding grants to help maintain the back roads. Because there may be Forest Service funding out there. There may be additional funding sources.
A lot of Parks and Rec money out there.
There's a
make
lot
that
of
as a
Parks and Rec money out there. And that just empowers us to allow Mary to, work on this too.
Can you word that in form? You can't make a motion,
So
can you?
moved.
No, but you can copy.
Because that
Yeah.
needs to be a secondary motion as opposed and not part of the priorities list.
Okay, so,
Oh,
who's
got it.
gonna make the motion?
Okay, one. I'm trying to kind of wait a minute, just a second on that one, particularly if you don't mind, Sherry. You're saying let's ask Mary to help us find more money for the backcountry roads, when in fact, if we look at what we're getting per mile, we're probably be pretty good on actual funding for those roads. The deal is it's going to take away from funding for the valley floor roads, and I personally think that's where the emphasis on grants should go.
And I concur with that, Ed. It's just that there's a lot of recreation funding out there and available right now. And so if we could apply it just in the best bucket, it would, it's whichever she can find that makes the most sense. But it empowers Mary to know that this is a priority of the commissioners if that's what you guys choose to recommend and is accepted.
So do we have that right?
Okay.
Paul, or not Paul, Ed, I think that the point is that we haven't probably exhausted our efforts for grant applications for recreational and other sources that would help us layer on additional funds for the backcountry roads. It's probably not been focused on as much as it has in past, so I think it's in any grants we can apply for that's gonna help us fund this and spread the money where we need it spread is to the benefit of the county.
And there's the RAC funding that just came
Yeah.
back into effect. Supposedly there's a lot of money in that. I, through second, third hand, understand that I got awarded the grant for No Business Road,
Oh,
for crushing and resurfacing, but I haven't heard it from the horse's mouth. That would be crushing next year and application following year probably. That was $200 some $1,000. RAC has helped us crush extra gravel in Yellow Pine about 6 years ago, maybe a little longer ago. I remember they threw in an extra 80,000 for additional gravel to be crushed. Accurately.
so we have, sorry, Jeff, we have a motion in process.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. But do we know what the wording of that motion is gonna be?
Paul made a motion, recommend to the county commissioners, make a recommendation to the county commissioners for Mary Rosen, Valley County grant writer, search for grants.
To explore potential grant possibilities for rebuilding backcountry roads.
Do you want it just backcountry?
That's all I
Well,
think Parks and Recs.
No.
I don't think we wanted this to be backcountry roads, but I think there needs to be a focus, may not have, recreational grants or, I don't know how you want to word that.
Mhm.
Recreational grant.
In addition to normal grant writing. Yeah.
Recreation's gonna be.
Okay. And okay, to bring back, to come back then to what we're planning to do this year on the backcountry roads as far as a maintenance plan, do we want a motion to recommend that we attempt to contract our backcountry maintenance as a starter and have Jeff move forward to that?
Finish this.
Yeah, I'd like to finish
Work
this
on
motion
the
first.
priority list, get it motioned, and then we can move on to.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna finish this priority list. I think some of this might come out of there, one or two.
So do we want to finish your motion, get that on paper, or,
Try that.
so if you can read that back so we can get a motion and a vote.
We're gonna write this motion up and then get a vote.
So Paul made a motion to instruct Valley County grant writer to explore potential recreational grant possibilities for rebuilding of backcountry roads.
Word backcountry in there.
I don't think we can get recreational grants for the main roads out here unless they access like older creek boat ramp. Or, yeah, most of our roads out here aren't gonna be.
Let's maybe just change it to the appropriate roads associated with available grants. I mean, the idea is to try to go to the grant writing process. If we have a rec grant, that'll get us some work on Spring Valley Road and Durham and all of that, because it accesses a boat ramp. It doesn't have to be backcountry, it's appropriate to whatever grants are available. And if we can find something to help access Slick Creek, or
Right,
will be it.
that would be if they open up the rack again. Oh, motion here, I'm just gonna shut up for a minute.
Did you hear the motion, Ed and Loren?
Yes.
Would you read that one more time, please?
Instruct Valley County grant writer to explore potential recreational grant possibilities for rebuilding eligible roads.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll have
Second.
that. By Kirby,
Favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing none, motion's passed.
Okay.
So if we can add that one to our list of recommendations to present Monday. Great. We can go back to our priorities list.
Okay, now let's move back to the priority list. We kind of got off a little bit of a track, but that track needed to go. Stage 4, and initiate any pre-budgeted and approved large projects. Those are,
Stage 4 yes, I've got a pretty good idea what those are gonna be and ready to put up. We put in, I think for contract work this summer, and I believe this includes crushing, about 2.3 million, 2.4 million
Dollars.
dollars
dollar.
for contract work. I'm getting ready to start putting RFPs. Oh, there's gonna be Heinrich, Johnson, Pearson. That's a grant that we have to just, I'm probably gonna end up doing a 1.5 overlay on that thing. To hold it together until we can find money for it. There's numerous roads, but I'm gonna contract out about $2 million worth of work next summer.
So Jeff, in stating that, we did get the SRS funding secured for 3 years. You got another million, I think it's $1.6 million
Per year?
the next 3 years, yes. But we
Is
need to
that-
add some.
When does that start?
As soon as the president signs it, they funded 21, budget year 21, 22, and 23.
21's already gone.
So we're gonna get a check.
Okay, so that'll be another million that either we can do work on or
1.6
You'll make
per
it happen.
year for 3 years.
Yes. I'm pretty positive it's 1.6. It's either 1.365 or 1.635, and I can't remember which one. Somewhere
Wow.
around $1 million.
That's 300 grand between friends.
Close.
Mhm.
Shekels.
Okay.
Okay, so you're on top of that.
Yep.
So we don't have to go into this carryover. Like, we'll have to spend that carryover down. 2.5.
Yep.
Okay, now we're talking about summer, grade and maintain gravel roads again. Second of 3 times under the guidelines mentioned above.
no second of 3 times. That once again, I think we bladed Smiley 6 times this year.
I think what Gary was referring to in his comments there was the discussion we had in the past about the backcountry roads,
Oh,
where we were bouncing around how to try to address Lauren's issues of the fact that you got to get them plowed in the spring, get them open, keep some level of maintenance, and then have them buttoned up in the fall before. I think that's where
okay.
Gary and I kind of had a brief conversation about our thoughts about this, and I can't speak for him, but that was the thought process I had in my list as well, was we're going to try to, based on travel and use, try to measure those roads and try to get 3 gradings a year on those main travel corridors back there.
I think is also valley roads.
Yeah, the valley floor was,
Continue asphalt repair, fill cracks, hot liquid sealer, prolong the life of existing asphalt.
Road maintenance.
Make vegetation along the shoulders, asphalt county roads, and restore the gravel shoulders of those paved roads. Further asphalt deterioration on the shoulder, I'd add on the shoulder. Items 2 and 3 are simple preventative maintenance procedures to ensure our asphalted roads last longer.
Once again, we got to get to that passing stuff on the side of the road. We got to kill it. Very, very expensive. Department does a couple miles each. That's all they have. They also have a stump growth spray they can put out like the highway does. It kills the weeds, plus it stunts the pre-emergent. Yeah, it's very expensive. It'd be definitely the way to do it if we ever come up with the money to go around and kill all the vegetation 4 feet of the paved road. It doesn't matter if it's gravel or paved.
Straight main asphalt arteries, with center line dividing. 50.
Yep, I got money in the budget this year for probably 10 to 20 miles of road.
About 20 miles. Just look for that. Grade country roads as needed, we'll leave it on the list. Maintain sight distance for blind intersections, that was kind of one of the things I added together.
It's kind of a year-round deal for us. We work on fall and spring and summer.
Ongoing maintenance of fleet to ensure limited downtime and efficiency. The software will help us a lot. Fall is final grade of county graded gravel roads as per guidelines stated above. Asphalt repair by
We'll do crack sealing in February when it's 20 degrees outside, as long as it's not snowing or raining. The colder it is, the wider the cracks open up, so the more that it'll hold. You can't hardly crack seal in the middle of summer when the asphalt's 1/4 inch wide cracks in the wintertime. Close in July. Can't see them. Colder it is, the better it is to crack seal, but we do it year round.
Okay, any thoughts at all, further thoughts on priority list for the county road department?
So
Jeff's list.
Lorraine probably knows I gave Cecil a whole bunch of patch material and he's fixing a big hole on the Bearden Creek Bridge back on Johnson Creek. Just another plan for next year, but I can't get the Boise. I'll do it on my own.
So I'd like to make a motion, formal motion, that we present the list that Gary prepared for seasonal priorities to the commissioners as a measurement tool for the success of the road department basis.
Harry, would you amend that to include, because what you have in front of you is we took a few of your recommendations and put in there also. So that's not strictly Gary's recommendations. May just want to put recommendations as presented or something like that. So.
As listed.
So we know for certain which list, because
I think that was a good
under
list.
summer, 6 and 7 were added. Under spring, 4 was added.
Yeah, so this is a conglomerate of everybody's input.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to recommend that to amend the motion to make the recommendation to the commissioners to undertake management, the priorities list that Paul has amended, presented today as a baseline measurement tool for the success of road department management. That work?
Second that motion.
So Kirby made a motion to present to the county commissioners the priority list. Do I have to call it more than a priority list?
Seasonal priority list is what I would do.
As a measurement tool, do you want me to include that?
You know, the expectations are that the commissioners are going to be responsible for ensuring that, or not, depending on what they
present
would,
it to the commissioners.
yeah, as a recommendation.
Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So what,
Well, do you want that read back?
That again? Ed,
beg pardon?
a comment?
Yeah, let me, just one question on this priority list. It seems like kind of a laundry list of things that we kind of should be expecting from the road crew. Would we be remiss in adding to that, that we do, there are some, especially backcountry roads, there's some roads that need, and we're going to have to incrementally improve over the years. You just can't maintain them. Lick Creek is a good example. So we're going to have you're going to have to start adding to that. If it's things that we're just telling the commissioners, these are things we need to be doing, probably do need to add at least one little sentence there that gives Jeff some direction to start doing some resurfacing and improving, actual improvement as opposed to maintenance on some of those roads so that we can maintain them. Am I out of line on that one?
Ed, I think that the point behind this seasonal priority list is just to create a baseline measurement of what is going to be expected of the road department as a baseline. I think when we get into, and Jeff, correct me, because I'm sure I'll be wrong somewhere here, but I think when we get into rebuilding the road bed over Lick Creek and some of these other significant things, that becomes, at least the way I would measure it based on our year of meetings, would be more of a special project that we would need to budget accordingly for and plan for. That would be over and above just this baseline measurement tool that would be implemented and measured by the commissioners. So my intent with the motion is to create that baseline, and then this group, along with Jeff and the commissioners on a go-forward basis, review these special projects and the funding mechanisms down the road.
And I would agree with that because we're going to be doing some long-term transportation planning as a region. So Jeff will be included in that conversation, and you guys can be included in that conversation. It'll be health and safety and transportation planning into the future. And that will empower Jeff then to decide which roads may either need just maintenance or may need paved or may need, how do we improve overall as a region?
Any comments? Okay, done?
Yeah, okay. I guess I'm okay with that one. I appreciate the feedback on that, Kirby, and I think I'm okay with that as you guys are presenting it. So I just don't want to, didn't want to sideline as part of maintenance. We really do have to keep adding something back. That's all part of maintenance, actually, not necessarily rebuilding. I mean, yeah, we could come up with a major rebuilding project, but there is a percentage of maintenance is just simply restoring, so, and that needs to be done on an annual basis. So that's the only reason I mentioned that. So, but I can go either way on it. I appreciate that.
Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposed. Opposed?
Further discussion?
Got that? Any further discussion? None. I think we discussed that one.
Okay, I think we
Good.
covered everything that I had on.
That's good. We got that out of the way.
I'm good.
So we will present that list along with all our other motions that we've carried on the 15th in a
Okay.
workshop with the county commissioners.
I was looking through some of this stuff. I didn't quite get all the way through, but there's a couple of other motions that I don't know if we've talked about. On September, June 6th, we had a motion by Kirby, and I seconded to moratorium subdivision. Do you have that on your list?
Yes. Saw that on.
Okay. How about there was a motion by Gary Swain of a 5-year lease purchase plan, and I seconded that, and it passed. Is that on your list?
That's number 3 at the bottom of page 1.
Okay, all right. I want to check, make sure we got them on there. All right, because I hadn't heard them today, I guess. Maybe I missed it.
Okay, and then to that list, we will add this motion that we just carried.
All right.
Mary shook her head saying she'll just add it to the list and this will be her handout, and Jeff's shaking his head. It's a good chart.
Can we take up, now can we go back to the issue of whether we want to make a motion and a recommendation for bidding that backcountry road work and prioritizing that? Or do we just want to leave that in Jeff's hands to get to work on? We kind of discussed it at length
We'll
before.
do it anyways, so.
Okay.
I think, Jeff, what we're talking about here is do we want to make, or do we need to make a motion to ask Jeff to try to bid out some of that backcountry maintenance? And he already says he's going to do it, so.
Well, you guys have already
He's already been
undertaken
thinking
out
about
the
it.
stuff we've talked about, so we might as well memorialize that we discussed it and made the recommendation. So I would move officially for the record that we recommend that the road department bid maintenance of the backcountry roads to determine cost of third-party contracting.
I second the motion.
It's a very good step. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Ed.
Okay, moving along, I think it's break time.
Need to call
Um,
need to call the
Did we
question.
vote?
So you
We
got to
didn't
finish
vote.
the
A
motion.
motion and a second, we got to vote.
I'm sorry, I'm sleeping at the switch here. I got break in my mind.
You got break on the brain.
And my gun, breaking my gun sights. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing
I
none.
think that's really good. It's a positive thing, and that's one of the bigger things that we've done, I think.
Yeah.
We talked about it in previous meetings, but we made it official, so thank you, Kirby.
Okay.
In favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Can we vote? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Motion carried.
The chairman, if we take a break, can it be quick? We have a planning and zoning meeting in here tonight, and the P and Z needs to come in and set up, so she's questioning how long we're gonna be today.
How long a break? Okay, so let's take,
Work at 5.
let's take a,
It's on paper, I'm
let's take
asking
a
you to go
maximum of
faster
10-minute
than-
break, which includes sidebar discussions.
We're running way ahead anyways, so.
Yeah, we're pretty much
I'm
done.
paying rent on this room.
Is there a list? Who created the list of priorities, just so I can see that?
Temporarily adjourned.
Which list of
The next one, we have one more thing to discuss, that priorities for the coming year. Is that
Um,
Jeff's list or whose list? is it?
We,
Okay,
I haven't seen that list, so.
so that's just an open conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much that same list that I'm constantly working on.
Perfect.
So,
You know, in my opinion, we've discussed pretty thoroughly the upcoming projects, with maybe exceptions of whatever Jeff has on his list that that's ongoing maintenance. So other than maybe it's a good idea just to have him bring that back as just a list. And I thought he did that early on. We talked about projects. So, or maybe that's just a review of this year's projects. So, do we need to discuss further this next year's management program?
Pretty much what I already said.
So the ones that you have listed on there,
That's some of them.
say you, so, I was just gonna, maybe I should do it when the meeting.
We,
Just wait. We'll document
That
it.
LTAC meeting, how
Yeah.
they wanted a list of extra projects, because they know they're gonna have extra funding.
I got a big list.
so I have a question
Right
off
to
the board,
us.
because it's probably not, we're not anywhere near ready.
Or be recorded,
How do
so
I
you
do
may
that?
wanna go back over it if you have
Well, no.
something that's not on-
This is just a blanket question. So, and I'm assuming it was Idaho County that hired the contractor that did that whole stretch from CSESH to the summit.
It's Forest Service.
Was it Forest Service? They hired those guys at the front end with the track hose, come in, pull up material back up in the road. And that's held up really well. I was back in there a couple weeks ago. How would that process help us get Lick Creek fixed going up to the summit?
Certain parts.
So what's it cost to get something like that done? I mean, that's going to be a major project, but Lick Creek keeps coming up every one of our meetings.
Yeah.
And again, you're the roads guy. I'm just,
So I did this a long time ago, and I can't remember if Gary was in charge or Gordon. We went up there with backhoes and excavators and reached between the trees, and pulled everything out into the road, and bladed it out, separated it, rolled it. Some of those areas like Hum Creek, there's no material left.
Yeah.
It's blowed over the edge.
well, it's down bedrock. I mean, some of
That's,
it's
and
really
they hauled a lot of material into that long gulch, build that road up. They did pull material up, but then they also added on top of that imported material.
Yeah.
Which
So-
in certain areas of Lick Creek, see what years ago where that black basalt is up there, right by the switchbacks,
Mhm.
that was all imported basalt, but look, I've been folding up.
That was, I mean, Ed has some valid points when it comes to that stuff, and I'm just wondering how big of a major expense project would it be to look at that, and even if you, and whether you think it'll hold up or not, if we get the material to even get it put
Get the
together.
appropriate material up there. We've got the pit, we've got the material, trucking, and, it. So for a mile of road, 24 feet wide. Out here on the valley floor, if we're rebuilding a road, we wouldn't have to do it up there, but we put a foot of base rock down. It's about 3,000 tons of road base per mile of road. Now, about $10.
Wrote somebody a calendar. A Morel tax meeting.
Tech, all right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
It's
figure out.
expensive, but I totally agree with Ed. It's gravel roads wear out. I mean, look at West Mountain. We put 6 inches of black crush down. West Mountain's better up there south of McCall. We rebuilt that road up through there. Had 4 to 6 inches of crushed basalt on it. There's nothing left but chips.
Mhm.
'Cause every time a car goes by and leaves this cloud of dust that goes out in the farmer's field, it's part of the road. That's the binder that holds the road together. That's part of maintenance, resurfacing these roads.
Yeah, I'm just,
There's a big difference between rebuilding and maintaining.
so we got, I mean, I recognize that we've got decent access roads coming down from South Fork. They're passable.
Yeah.
Which, going over Lick Creek is a commitment
Yeah.
right now.
To me, that's.
I made that commitment once this year, and I was like, I don't know if I can afford to make that commitment for another year. And
Loren
That's
laughing.
good for the dentist office.
Yeah, right.
it was like, I made that commitment, and then I came back and had to weld my muffler back on underneath the Jeep,
Put your
and
fillings-
that's the
Go back to
truth.
the dentist office,
Yeah.
get your fillings put.
Um,
Sounds like we need to try and write a grant for that.
It's a beautiful drive. but,
That would probably be a RAC grant. The Forest Service would definitely.
But I look at it and I can just guess that gets a lot of traffic
Oh,
coming
yeah.
out of McCall.
High speed, a lot
And-
of side-by-sides on it the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so I don't know if that needs to kind of rise up the priorities list as we look at funding sources and these grants.
Well, that's the worst one of the backcountry, that one,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean,
It's the most one that, from the safety concern.
it had been a couple of years
I'll
since
say
I
it's
went over
unsafe,
that
but
way
it's-
because I usually, when I go back towards Big Creek in that country, I usually go down through Warren and then around through Yellow Pine and back out. And I hadn't driven Creek in a couple of years, and it's like, well, this is good.
Hasn't gotten any better, I'll tell you that.
No. I think the Elk Creek Road is better than Creek
It
Road.
is, and a lot of it is because it only gets 300 cars a year on
Yeah.
it, maybe.
I told
So
my
what do you
wife, I
call
said,
it? It needs total resurfacing.
Lick Creek? Lick Creek would be, not a rebuild,
Major maintenance.
restoration.
restoration.
Restoration, there you go.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Jeff, what would you need in your budget? If you need chemicals, all that stuff. I mean,
I'd have to talk to
doesn't have
Steve
the
to see how much that is.
personnel, I don't think. If you have to have a chemical license to spray it, that
We
might
do.
be an issue.
Yep, 'cause that's,
Some at his
it's pretty
department.
nasty stuff. It's basically a Roundup.
Maybe we can take and add some of that each year of the budget or something for the next couple
Well, I
of
mean,
years. but-
they could spray it as they were spraying for weeds. They could mix it all together, and
I would
it's
do that.
just for like a little pint. It's like a cup full per gallon. That's how potent that stuff is. But a quart or a pint of that stuff's like $300 or something like that.
It's probably though, if you cost it out though, the time that your guys are spending doing
Look
that
at what
work
it's doing
every
to our
year,
asphalt. I mean, it's
yeah, it'd be more cost effective just to treat it chemically and not spend your.
how much land do we have at this facility we were talking down here in Dawn, or out by Lake Fork? How much land is down there? How much room do you have in addition to the building?
in the pit. About 160-ish acres, 140
Not the pit,
acres.
The building, the fancy building that we have down there.
Oh, in Lake Fork,
We've
Yeah.
got about a,
square footage.
No, how big's the land? How much land?
Well,
do we-
the building is sitting on,
Yeah.
including the grain sheds, truck sheds, or just the building?
Just how much dirt is there? Do
I
we-
think there's about 2 acres right there.
Okay, so I'm just going through the notes that were in my head totally since the last time I looked at them. And that's the other question. I don't know that we really want to formalize it at this point. I don't know. But Gary and I had a brief sidebar conversation about facilities and kind of the annual discussions between the fair and the road department, moving of equipment around to accommodate that. And I don't know that it's necessarily your department to actually look into this. It may be something commissioners need to do, but I think there'd be some value in you taking a look at moving out down here, what it would take to move out down here, move up there, move your offices there, centralize your stuff there. I know that we've got south and north, and we've got to spread stuff out.
You still need a
But-
satellite shop down there.
But
Need to go to Gulfport or something.
yeah, but it seems to me like maybe we'd be better off using the facilities that are dedicated to the road department right now and offloading or somehow getting this facility down here into Fair Board ownership. And
Talked
then,
about that at our last meeting.
and then,
so
you know, and if we can actually create a sale from one asset to the other, and then if we need more ground or if we need a satellite shop or something, and get out of there. Because it strikes me just listening to things in the last 2 years that your life would be easier to manage, not to mention your job, if you were not there. Would that be a fair statement? So, yeah, I don't know
just
that
the
that's
way that
appropriate for us to be dealing with.
And it's a good question for taxpayers and the tax base, because technically the fair, we provide the facilities, they run the event. Okay? So if we were to move out of that location, we can expand the fair, which is really, they need additional space, and turn that into a true fairgrounds. That'd be awesome, but it would be at county expense. So there wouldn't be a recapture of funding if we moved out of there. It would be something that, it would cost us to move Gold Dust and to relocate. Would the taxpayers entertain $1 million when our roads are not?
Who owns
up
the
to
fair?
speed? The county.
The county owns the fair?
Yes, that is the Valley
There's a fair
County Fair.
board.
There's just a board that oversees the event.
They
And
only
we are to
use-
provide
They only
the,
use it 2 weeks out of the year, so what are they gonna do with it the other?
well, that's the whole point of a
If you
Rent it
fairground.
out to somebody.
You should
Turn
be
it
able
in-
to
turn
rent
it
it out
into
for
the-
everything. It
Turn
should
it
be an
into the
event
flea
venue.
market and
Yeah, it should be a full event venue. I mean, we should be able to have
Yeah.
weddings there.
That flea market south of town right here.
you want, I mean, you want to talk about funding resources? Go down there, there's water there, there's sewer there.
Sewer.
So go down there and put RV hookups. And
Oh.
when
Oh,
you're not
great
running
idea.
the fair, rent RV spaces. And let's, I mean,
That's a great
I know
idea.
I know I'm a diehard capitalist, but there's a way to make this, and that's not popular now
Right.
in America. But there's a way to turn that thing into something that's going to be a benefit to the county and create much easier management issue in your life, I think. So
And it sold the flea market?
So now, is it there, so now the flea market doesn't have a home? Or,
Correct. They kept the Quonset building for themselves, but they sold it.
Oh, he did sell it? Oh, I knew it was pending,
We
but
have another subdivision?
No.
No? Okay.
Third is gonna be storage.
Of course.
Where,
Storage.
yeah.
Okay,
So
Joe.
anyway,
Okay,
sorry, that was
so-
a sidebar, but I think it's something, and again, I don't know that it's appropriate for this group.
We had had that discussion about facilities on the last meeting. We talked about that.
We can have that as a full conversation in a while and
Put that on the next agenda.
perfect.
So let's talk about priorities for the coming year. And, just little things, I mean, this was more or less the overall priorities for you. We picked up from different people, in the public, talking about that kind of thing. But I just had a list of little things and just comments, because some of this stuff you've already thought about. You're probably already in working with, like Johnson Lane. I know several people that live on Johnson Lane. I saw that ad, there was a little opinion in the paper about speed in Johnson Lane. Heinrich, you're already on Heinrich, right? Farm to Market. Repairs. Repairs, and you were talking about a chip seal on Farm to Market.
at some point, yeah, I think that kind of area, we talked about it months ago. 14 miles long, so we probably have to phase it out. We want to get that out to a major collector width standards. By law, right? Because we don't right away on it. Maybe a mile of that road, it's easements.
Just easements.
It's easements. Probably run irrigation water down the ditches. We've never widened it. Now, because we widened it, where's the irrigation water?
that way you can't just use the,
The current easement is a 50-foot.
Oh, would you-
Construction. Maintenance of the road that already exists.
you need a right of way that states,
You gotta buy a right.
you gotta buy right. But you only need to buy right away if you don't have that ditch in there about right of way. Because I did learn, remember, that OPEC meeting, that we can use easements just like we can right of way.
Most of
Yeah.
our easements aren't wide enough to do any widening. Because you widen the road a foot, slope it out to 3 to 1, 24-foot wide road if you do it to our standards. It's the minimum of the 70-foot right of way, because we still gotta have all the utilities in our right of way. Usually leave 10 foot off to one side or the other, or both sides for the utility. Power poles, the phone lines, broadband, whatever else.
That's probably a major tiger grant.
Yes, that's gonna be a lot of money. But we don't have to pay for utility movements because we're letting them use our easement for free. Put that in. So upon request, they are stuck with the bill to move it out of our way.
We have to let them use it for free.
I have no idea.
Yes, we do.
Eh.
Okay, there you go. Good idea, Kirby.
Well, that's something that's like how do I want to say it, an exchange of easements when we need to use something, a collaboration.
Lights on in the county.
What else you got, Paul?
I got Norwood. It's trying to fall apart in the middle, mostly the middle. I'm not sure what's caused that, but heavy truck traffic.
So is that paving?
Paving.
Paving, yeah. Also had Southwest Mountain Road. That's the right term for it. The road that if you were gonna come from Boise and wanted to get to Tamarack and then Rosebury. Is
It's
that
gonna
any
be
kind of a thought?
another,
Through Rosebury?
No, it would
it's
be
south
the
of Tamarack, it's just West Mountain, Joe.
West
It's on
Mountain,
road from.
Oh,
the south end of it.
no man's land.
No man's land. No person's land.
Yes, and
God's acres.
we're slowly working on that.
Okay.
Valley Soil and Water, we get a small grant through them every year to do watershed projects.
Okay.
Help us really
Replace
widen the roads.
And the other one I had on my list was culvert on launch pads. For the culvert, Patty Flat Road. Well, Rosebury's got a couple of them too, but
Rosebury's got some bad.
East Rosebury.
East Rosebury's on my list.
Patty Flat, and then I think Farm to Market's got a couple of launches too that you years made it better. Sula surface route, they're north. Did a
About Doris's house.
yeah.
Now,
Missoula.
Sula. Let's say north Missoula,
North of Heinrich.
north of Heinrich, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's like-
past that little place where you did the mag. We did mag. That's Spring Valley, you'd probably like that.
Yeah, I've got pretty much all the
I
pavement.
drive right by it.
All the pavement and wagon wheels on my.
Shoulder maintenance. Gary and I. We already talked about Lick. And then, what was the, remember we had a discussion early on about the bridge at Rosebury,
West Rosebury?
West Rosebury, yeah.
West Bridge.
That bridge that, was like that, yeah. What's the story on that?
Basically, Tamarack starts
Much bigger.
getting much bigger. Hoping I'll have the commissioners on my side, and I'm pretty sure I will, whoever it is sitting up here, to get Tamarack to help a bridge replacement and straightening. It's gonna be quite a bit of money to build the causeways out a little farther, so then the West Rosebury is a straight line. You look on a map, it's perfectly straight, but they built the bridge at 90 degree to the creek, 'cause that's the cheapest way to do it. Rock was free to them. The traffic.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
And, you know, once again, I'm gonna say, nothing wrong with the road, it's the people driving on them.
Yeah, I was, my response to that question was, people need to slow down when they go across the S
We had
Bridge.
wrecks out by Tamarack this
And
morning.
It's a
heard
perfectly
We had a couple
fine bridge.
rollovers, we had.
Yeah, if you go.
It's got one of the best
It
surfaces in
snowed,
the valley.
it melted, it rained, and it froze last night. 3 wrecks out there this morning.
And it's.
And the only other thing I had on my list is speed limits.
Speed limits?
Yeah.
I have to base speed limits on a speed study. 85% of the traveling public will do a safe speed on that road. And a lot of the times the speed study will bite people in the butt because if they want 25, I do a speed study and they drive it at 40.
So I think what you're talking about is ITD though, because you're talking, when you were talking about going through the communities, that's on State Highway 50.
Some of it's on state, but we have, speed limits 45 on, really wide enough for 2 big trucks to pass each other.
Which road? The market, east,
Pretty narrow spots there.
right?
Breaking up what's left of the shoulder asphalt.
And we talked to ITD. They told the commissioners the same thing I told them. They did not designate farm to market as a detour, so they're not gonna be responsible to help. Pretty much that's what they said, right?
Google did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was your waste.
But it was not a legal advertised detour. People just found it. And that really, last 2 summers, this summer it really took a toll.
Our poor grant writer, keep telling her, go after transportation grants. Then Park and Rec goes, I want Park and Rec grants. And then Sheriff says, I want Sheriff grants.
So we
We're keeping her busy.
go back to Spring Valley and that stuff down at Wagon Wheel. How much of that, as far as recreation grants, are you only going to be able to get the arterial, like the Durham,
The only thing I can get would
Spring
be
Valley?
Loomis, Spring Valley, because they're directing traffic in Spring Valley, Lake Trail, Cascade, Wildwood. Their signs are directing their traffic in.
There's a sign at Siskra, that stop sign too, isn't there? That tracks them down to Durham and around.
Is there one there?
I'll have to look tonight when I go home. It
I
seems
know
like
one at
there's,
the intersection of Spring Valley and Lake Trail, there's one there.
that if you turn south on Siskra and go down where Durham is,
Yep. Oh, is there
there's
sign right
a
there?
sign there.
Okay.
I think.
That sign was
99%
probably
sure.
there before they built Fir Grove.
And then, they just approved that new subdivision, or somebody's talking about approving a new
I don't think they-
subdivision.
I don't know if it's been approved yet or not.
Don't look at me.
That's Durham and Siskiyou.
Look at the P and Z people. It's like, I'm gonna make my wife come live with you guys if you approve that.
We're not discussing anything that does not.
Stick around.
But that's beside the point. So I'm just curious as to what of that surface, and Spring Valley is the worst of it, right? So, and
Lake
Loomis,
Trail, all that pavement in there is just gone.
so if those recreational grants would help, that would be an ideal funding source for that.
And I know I've talked to the state parks many times and they're not gonna help you. Nope. They'll write a letter of support.
So the only thing I can say is right now, there is a bucket of money that is gonna be pouring into the state. And a lot of it is transportation related. They're actually looking at the other CARES funds that have not been spent and allowing counties to use a variable mix toward roads and bridges. So we do need to try and do everything we can, bring some of those federal dollars home since they're out there. And if we can,
So is that money gonna pour into the state and then the state parse it out, or is it gonna be, so,
actually, there's a little bit of both, Kirby.
cause I haven't,
I can speak
I
to
haven't
that a
read-
little bit if you'd like.
Yes.
I'd like to know.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Jeff and I attended the LTAC workshop a couple of weeks ago. And Idaho Department, or LTAC, gives a presentation, runs down all their grants. And then after that meeting, we reconvened as the Valley
Adams Planning Partnership.
Adams Planning Partnership. And that is kind of it's a required group. Oh, not required. But
Helps us get
LTAC likes to see coordination with adjacent counties, any kind of coordination. So we convened into that meeting, and that's where we rank the different projects. And so I wanted to let you guys know what grants are going to be written and by who. That might be nice. Huh? So East Rosebury Road resurfacing, that is going to be submitted by Donley. Cascade is going to put in for Lake Cascade Parkway chip seal. Right now, Jeff and I are working on the update to the transportation plan. The transportation plan is over 10 years old. So we're looking to get that updated. Cascade is putting in for a transportation alternative program, funding for the Strand pathway and School Street sidewalks. Recall, and these are for like pathways for kids to get to and from school. And Woolley Avenue pathway. Child pedestrian safety grants, New Meadows is putting in for a pedestrian crossing right there at the school. Hall is putting in for East Einhard Lane pathway. Pathway they currently have, I guess, is too close to the road. Valley County, Jeff and I are gonna put in for a school bus stop crossing by the
Right, the
Meadows.
Major intersection between the condos on one side and the houses on the other, that big giant intersection. It's really bad. The bus drivers are always calling me asking, that's why we put school bus stop ahead signs with the little flashers on them, but I want something that really, hey, there's kids here. Also, there's a street light right there at the intersection that helps light it up a little bit. 'Cause in the wintertime, those kids are out there in the dark and then they get off the bus in the dark. Then they run across 4 lanes of traffic.
Makes them resilient as adults, Jeff.
And then Jeff and I have been working on updating the Lakeshore Drive grant. That is resurfacing from the county line to West Mountain. And also Cascade is putting in for their Lakeshore Drive Phase 3.
From the boat ramp
The
to
rest
the
of it
dam.
in town, it's not done yet. So in sending those to BOR to be reviewed, because there are it's federal. BOR wants us to combine.
Municipalities play. But years ago, if the grants, if the 2 projects didn't touch, it didn't really work. Don't touch, but maybe they've changed something in the last few years.
Go wreck in the middle, man.
No, it's,
They touch.
no, Lakeshore's already been done by the city, separate phases.
They're funding part of it, it's all each end of
Right.
is funding.
Yeah.
After the golf course. To the dam.
So I'm thinking
So there's
you'll have an
connectivity
email,
via
but I'm thinking
previous
that they want to
grants.
meet Tuesday at 1. They'll have an invite. And then also, one of the most important things that I got out of that is all the extra funding that's going to be coming in from the state. And they told us that they need an unfunded priority list.
Unfunded.
Funded priority list. So that they can, over and beyond the grants that we submit this year, they want a list from Jeff so that they can start visiting with people if needed.
So
When do they
your
need-
unfunded priority
As
list
soon
would
as
number
possible.
1 be farm to market. Since we only have one true paved from north to south
I
arterial
think it'd be
between,
West Mountain Road, only one true.
yeah, because it goes south, Castle.
It goes all the way, yeah.
Yeah.
And we see what happened with the fatality on Little Daughter.
Yeah, close.
That was just, oh. I've talked to people that went that way and, oh my God, I'm
It
surprised
was
somebody didn't die
miserable.
over
Just
there.
settled for all time across the way.
Yeah, that's right. So we got,
But both of those are big.
Farmer Market gets a lot of bicycle use, so someday it would be nice to, at least a 4-foot paved shoulder on each side.
They both have different uses.
Yeah.
So one is a major collector. I mean, because you can hit it from the South Valley and go all the way to the north. So West Mountain needs to be a major collector. We need to identify that and start funding toward that. Farm to Market is a major collector, or maybe it's a minor
No,
collector.
it's a major.
It is a major. Okay. So the number of people on it. So we really do need 3 full, for south. We've talked about paving Norwood from Rosebury, West Rosebury on, because it's on this side of the lake.
It's got that
so
little jog.
yeah.
There's valid arguments to be made to have 2 other north-south, we can use politics and environment and increase fire issues, to support the fact that one highway running down the middle of this thing is not getting it. Yeah, it'll get it done, but if we have an event,
I mean, how
do you get anybody out
Blaine
here?
County has one road that goes through it.
Mhm.
Polk County has one going through it.
They don't have a major water body in the middle of it.
What?
And a major water body and river crossings. So Blaine County, if you look at it, it's right through the valley floor. And yeah.
Yeah,
So
and the
you
state
can't
spends a
get
lot of
stopped.
money taking care of that compared to what they do up here.
And we're 55 is a collector for 95.
I can solve the
There's a
problem
little
real
bit.
easy.
So
Gate through at Little Ski Hill and we put a gate down here below Smith's Ferry.
Doesn't
It's
work
both
that way.
bridges.
Real close due to what, snow emergency?
Just below the bridges at either end. We just real quickly,
Discussion.
Sherry, I don't know who's responsible, but it would be ideal to have a press release available from our PR department and an invitation to Star News to show up at this meeting Tuesday or Monday, the 15th. If she could.
And I actually
Make
did
that
already let
happen, that
Max
would be
know
good.
that.
Hmm?
That I did let Max know that would be a good one for him to be in person, but I will read it.
Yeah, because they've had various critical comments about what this board's doing, and I think having them actually be there and recognize that there's been a lot of work done over the last month and that we're putting together this kind of presentations would be warranted.
Combination of a year's worth of discussion, understanding, and suggestions, recommendations. I think, some of our slow starts early on was us just trying to understand funding mechanisms, what really is going on. I'm still not 100% sure what that is. Just the terminology, I used to call it carryover.
Get used to it. You're going to be paying it shortly.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you understand it as long as you write the check.
Ready for it.
It's a savings account that we're taking.
Savings account, yeah. But, some of those things that we all as a committee had to understand what was going on and issues of backcountry and how we're funded and blue line roads versus everything else. And Jeff, I really appreciate you, all the times you've spent with us.
What I've learned in 20 years.
Let's do this stuff.
Figuring stuff out.
Jerry, we miss you wherever you are.
That's right.
Yeah, he's not here.
All right. We done?
I think we're done. Any comments from you, Ed, or?
No, I think I'm good, guys, for right now. I think we've made 1 or 2 kind of major proposals here today. I hope that we can, be pretty convincing in the county commissioners meeting on those, but that particularly our recommendation to just go ahead and recognize that backcountry road maintenance probably has to be, we have to put a different emphasis on it, and contracting is probably the way to go. To me, that's one of the best ones we've made lately. A lot of other stuff, it seems like it's hard not to get into the weeds with as far as, and then speculation about the future. Of course, that's all good, but anyway, yeah, I'm good. I think we made some headway.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Do I hear one?
So moved.
Seconded. We are now adjourned. No further discussion.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jeff, you can go return all
guys.
312 of your
Oh,
voicemails.
and one other quick comment. I think we'll start this back up to 2 hours at the next meeting.
Okay, 2 hours, all right.
So starting
We'll start at 3. 3 to 5. Yeah, 3 to 5.
3, okay.